Shalom, shalom, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of On the Mic. I'm Raquela, and this is my co-host, Beatty, and we are so glad to be here with all of you. I'm actually live from Jerusalem, and Beatty is live from Bet Shemesh, Israel, and we'd love to know where all of you are joining us from, so please do utilize the chat at the bottom of your screen to let us know your name and where you're watching us from. And we're going to jump into things in a moment with our very special guest, Shai Davidai, in just a moment. But before we do that, I want to go ahead and share with you guys a little bit about On the Mic and this brand new series. So On the Mic is a new podcast series that we've launched exclusively on the Aish Plus platform. And it's a series to address the rising anti-Semitism that's facing our people, the challenges that are facing young professionals, especially in North America, and also to, talk about Jewish pride, because Jewish pride and unity is one of the strongest ways that we can fight anti-Semitism. So before we jump into welcoming our guest, I just want to take a moment to introduce ourselves as well. Beatty, do you want to go first?
Sure. I'm Beatty. Excuse my sore throat. I'm still getting over sickness. I am a professional marathon runner for Israel, a mom of 5, and now managing the United Against Anti-Semitism community, and just an overall very passionate activist for Israel. And I love connecting with Jews all over the world. So this makes me really happy to see you guys from wherever you are.
And I'm Raquela, and I'm an Israeli American. I was born in New York, but grew up here in Jerusalem. Went back to the States for a little bit to do my studies and then moved back home a couple years ago. I am a former lone soldier, former IDF sergeant, and former Israeli government spokesperson, and now part of the Aish Plus team. So, like we said, this series On the Mic is going to be coming to you twice a month. So bi-weekly, every other week. And we're actually, today we're on Wednesday, but usually we're going to be doing this on Sunday afternoons. So Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern. And we're going to have guests from all different walks of Jewish life to talk about how they're experiencing anti-Semitism and how they represent their Jewish pride. Speaking of which, we have, like we mentioned, a very special guest joining us today. We're very excited for this. We've been looking forward to it. Let's go ahead and welcome him. Shai, are you there?
I am here, and you butchered my name, but then you salvaged yourself. So it's good. Yes. It is Shai Davidai, right?
Shai Davidai, yes. I don't know why I keep wanting to say that, Shai.
I will tell you why. It's a sign of true Israelis. Because Israelis know that Davidai is a very rare name. My grandfather made it up.
Wow.
I was really trying to understand where it came from. And I'm like, Shai Davidai, like, how do you end up like that?
My grandfather was Binyamin Davidovich. And when my father was born, there was this trend of Israelifying names to kind of like put away our diasporic nature. And he came up with Davidai. But being in Israel, you know that the common is Davidi. There was actually a famous soccer player called Shai Davidai, who was way more accomplished than I am. But yeah, so very, very honored to be your first guest. And it can't get worse than this. So, like, screw up and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, we are honored to have you, and we appreciate you taking your evening, because it's like 8 p.m. where you are, I believe.
Yes, my daughter just fell asleep a few minutes ago. That's why I was a bit late to our signing in.
No worries.
And it's still reading, and I'm happy to be here.
Very cool.
I have to apologize about my hair. I don't know what's happening here, but you'll have to
it's part of the show.
Yeah.
It's part of your brand, though. No,
yes.
I feel like the messy hair is part of who you are and how people see you.
It's the messy life. Yeah.
I actually love your style. I've watched you, on a couple of the episodes of your podcast, and just wherever I've seen you, and your hair is always, it's, on point. The sneakers are on point. Everything is on point. It's very cool.
It's funny that you say style, because I feel like part of, when I never wanted to be a public figure, never wanted to be in front of a camera, never wanted people to know my name and face. And being thrown into this, there was like a moment of like, okay, do I now like change my hair and start dressing up like an adult, like my mom would want me to dress up? And then I said, no, screw it. Like the whole idea is everyone can and should be an activist. So we should just be ourselves and not play to some role.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. So, tell us about that. How, first of all, who is Shai? Where did you grow up? Your childhood?
Yeah.
How did it all come about for you?
Yeah. So I born and raised in Israel, grew up in a small suburb of Tel Aviv called Kiryat Ono. Other than a few years that I lived in Romania as a child, spent all of my time in Israel. I enlisted in the Israeli Navy when I was 18, spent 3 years in the Navy as a medic. Then after the Navy, spent a few months in Paris where I have some family, and then went to the Hebrew University for 3 years, graduated. And that was the moment when I decided with my wife, which was my girlfriend at the time, that we will move to the United States to pursue our graduate degrees. I went to Cornell University to get a PhD in social psychology. My wife went to get her master's degree in what used to be a very esteemed institution called Columbia University. And then after graduation, kind of went with the flow. Went to worked a year at Princeton, 3 years at the New School for Social Research, and then at some point, the opportunity to join Columbia Business School presented itself, and I was very grateful. So I've been at Columbia Business School for just over 5 years. That's
Wow.
me before October 7th, right? If we were talking, the conversation would end here because there wouldn't be much other than talking about my research. Since October 7th, 2023, I've become a sort of accidental, initially reluctant activist, where I basically saw something that I thought was wrong. I was hoping that someone would say something. No one was really up to saying anything. And then I decided that I should be the one to speak up.
That's the viral clip, basically, that we all saw.
That is the viral clip. I mean, it started with me just writing things on my social media. I believe the first thing that I wrote that really took off was on October 12th, after I was at Columbia observing the first hate-filled protests. I've seen many since. And then I first spoke up in front of people just a few days before that viral clip came out. I was at the Jewish Community Center in my neighborhood. And then, there was a vigil that some students held at Columbia, and I spoke up there. My wife took a video of that. We posted it online, and a few days later, millions and millions of people saw it, and I took on this new role.
So that's what happened leading up to that moment. It was the visual. It's not like something at that moment happened on campus. It was the visual that kind of like led into that now infamous speech, or infamous rant.
What? It was more of a rant than a speech. I mean, all
Right.
of my.
That's what you're famous for.
All of my public.
That's kind of what got you off Columbia, also, right?
Yeah. It was the thing that really was the thing that changed everything was the first protest that I saw on Columbia's campus. And it's something that I tell a lot of Israelis when they ask me, is it really that bad? What does it feel like? I tell them, if you're in New York City, go and just look at one of these protests. Don't engage, don't get too close, but you need to see hate, because it is hate. It's not, it's not politics, it's not ideology, it's hate. And once you see hate face to face, and especially for me as a Columbia professor, seeing it on my campus, once you observe it face to face, for me at least, it felt like there was no turning back. Like, you cannot take hate and then say, well, okay, let's put that aside for a second. Like, to me, the moment I saw hate on campus, and the hate was not being addressed by the administration, was the moment that I decided I need to do something. Now, it wasn't a clear decision. It wasn't like I said to myself, now's the time to rise up. It was more of a, any action requires a reaction. And that my reaction was speaking up. When I spoke up, because of, basically not myself, but the millions of people that watched it and shared it, I received a small platform. Journalists started speaking with me, asking me about my views on what's happening. So I had to quickly educate myself about the history of Columbia, the history of anti-Semitism in the Ivy Leagues, then the history of anti-Semitism in the 20th century, then the history of anti-Semitism throughout 3,000 years of Jewish existence. And I slowly kind of had to morph myself to step up to this role.
So was it something new for you, or was it something that you'd always had an interest in, or to that point you didn't really pay much attention to it?
I've always had an interest. I've always had this perverse obsession with learning everything that I could about the Holocaust. To me,
Oh, wow.
that was always something. I remember as a teenager, growing up, when you grow up in Israel, Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Memorial Day, happens exactly a week before about Memorial Day, Yom HaZikaron, for the fallen soldiers, and then the next day is Yom HaAtzmaut, Independence Day. For me, I was always more impacted by the Holocaust Memorial Day, not because I didn't lose family in the Holocaust, luckily, but because there was something so irrational, and that I just felt, even as a kid, I needed to understand. So I have this tradition every year since I've been 16 or 15. I watch movies on Holocaust Memorial Day about the Holocaust from every angle. I would read books about it. It was always something that I was really interested in. But I wasn't the kind of person to walk around and look for anti-Semitism around me. And even when there were instances of anti-Semitism, which in retrospect, I see them as anti-Semitism, I was the kind of person to say, well, it's not that bad, because it wasn't as bad as the Holocaust, and nothing can be bad as the Holocaust. Nothing ever will be bad, hopefully, as the Holocaust. So I was always kind of downplaying it in my mind, downplaying it in conversations. For a few moments, that rose above the threshold of concern. That moment when Kanye West, Dave Chappelle, Kyrie Irving, speaking, saying these atrocious things, that to me again was a little bit like, hey, what's going on here? Especially because none of my colleagues said anything about it. It wasn't so much the fact that they were saying it, but rather the silence. Obviously, the Tree of Life shooting in Pittsburgh caught us off guard. My previous apartment, we used to have this small storage space that I would call, this is our Anne Frank space, that, when they come for us, this is where we'll hide. But it was always a little bit of tongue in cheek, because we were living in the 21st century in the United States of America. Anti-Semitism wasn't supposed to happen. But here we are.
Exactly.
Sorry, you kind of segued us into our next questions, because we were going to ask how.
I told you I went.
No, it's great. It's so fun for me, honestly, because I've been on so many podcasts, and now I'm like, oh, I just get to listen, and it's so interesting. And you also have your own podcast, so I'm curious.
Yeah, I should tell you. You know what? Can I plug my podcast for a second?
Absolutely.
Of course, we're planning on plugging.
That's why you're here.
Well, I'll tell you why. I hate self-promoting, but I started my podcast exactly for that reason. I was being on so many podcasts, being asked very similar questions. And at some point, I decided, like, no one needs to see this face and hear this voice anymore. There are so many other incredible voices that may not be getting as much of a platform as I am. And I just wanted to create a space where I will collate and bring those voices to the surface. And so I started Here I Am with Shai Davidai, where that was the exact goal of there is, and it's not a podcast about anti-Semitism, it's a podcast about Jewish civil rights, because there's a difference there, because we're not defined by the people that hate us, we're
Right.
defined by who we are
100%.
and what we want in the world. So yeah, so everyone, after you listen to this every week, go and listen to Here I Am with Shai Davidai.
Actually,
Yeah.
that leads me to an interesting question. The name, what is that all about? The Here I Am. It's it's a really interesting name. Why did you go with that name? Is there a story behind it?
So yeah, there was a lot of thought about behind that. There was actually I had two stories that two names that kind of like were the finalists. One was Facing Goliath,
Okay.
which this idea of we have this Goliath, this behemoth in front of us, and we have to like fight up, and we should all be like young King David, just like stepping up and using our brains, because we're outnumbered, we are outcast by using our brains. And then a dear friend of mine, Eitan Chitayet, who started this
Oh yeah, I know him.
I
Yeah.
Am That Jew, he said, don't define yourself based on them. If you call yourself Facing Goliath, then the focus is on Goliath rather than on you.
Right.
So then I went with the other name, Here I Am, Hineni, because Here I Am shows up, if I'm not mistaken, 157 times in the Bible. And it shows up
Wow.
in every
Look
time.
at you quoting biblical facts from the
I know,
atheist, right?
and yes, I've been. It's interesting, and we can talk about my atheism as well. But yeah, but it shows up in many different situations where people are called up to, to task, and they don't necessarily want to take on the task, and yet
Yep.
their response is, "Here I am," because
Mhm.
it's not here I am and I know what to do. It's not here I am and I have the tools needed. It's just here I am. That is a fact.
Right.
I am right here. That's the task. I will do the task that is at hand. And sometimes it leads to negative things, like ha'akedah, right? Like when Abraham says to God, Hineni, to go and basically sacrifice his son. It's if I'm not mistaken, Shaul says this, Here I am. It just shows up so many times. It's something interesting about who we are.
Well, I don't know if you have heard of the organization in New York, Hineni. It was founded by Rebbetzin Esther Youngrice, who was a Holocaust survivor, whose whole mission was to revive the Jewish community and just have people reconnect with their faith after she came, and that was her organization, Hineni, Here I Am, because I think she had that same idea. Like, it's not like I'm anything special, but I'm here to fulfill your call and duty in whatever it is, and to show up for the Jewish people, which is really beautiful.
That's very nice, and it did when we decided on a name. I should say this, and we started recording our podcast, and then we found out there are already multiple podcasts, smaller podcasts called Here I Am, mostly Christian theology ones, and then I decided, well, who are we with? Well, every guest is Here I Am with Shai Davidai. So it became this thing where, like, it's weird to me to promote my own podcast, which has my own name, which feels very narcissistic. Here I Am with Shai Davidai. But that was a bit more of we had to do that so we don't blend in with the other podcasts. But yeah, here we all are.
I personally love the name and love the explanation, because you're right. It's not that we as Jews have the answer or know what we're doing. It's just that we're ready to do something. We're ready to, and you've seen it, like you're saying, with everyone, with Moshe. He didn't know what he needed to do. He didn't think he was qualified to speak. He didn't think, there was with Gideon, or like with, Samuel, all of them, they just said, answered the call. And then from there, you know,
Right.
whatever you want to say, the higher power, God, took it from there and, you know, led the way.
And
So I
I'll
love
say,
that.
I'll say, you know, I've actually told this quite a few times when I talk with high schoolers, Jewish high schoolers, about the story of Moses, Moshe, and when does Moshe becomes Moshe, right? Because you know, whatever you think about the Bible, right? You know, if you think of the Word of God, if you think of the Word of men, it's an incredible story. It's an incredible piece of, you know, writing and art. And the story, the narrative of Moshe, of Moses, is so interesting because he's basically a pampered prince who becomes the leader of the Hebrews that leads them out of slavery. But there's a moment in his story that his life trajectory takes a complete, you know, 180. And that's the moment where he sees the slave owner, the Egyptian slave owner, beating a Hebrew slave. Now, Moses, at the time, he doesn't know that this guy is Egyptian and this guy is Hebrew because he's been sheltered in the castle, in Pharaoh's castle for his entire life. He doesn't probably know that there are Hebrew slaves. But he jumps to action. He doesn't think and say, oh, you know what should I do? He doesn't think and say, what are the consequences? He just does something. Now, because he does that, he kills the Egyptian slave owner, and then he has to run away. He runs away to Midian, and that's when the story changes for him. Now, if you asked him, would you have done that again? Now that you have to live, you know, in poverty in the desert, you could have had it all. You had been the next Pharaoh.
Right.
I assume, I don't know, but I assume that he would have said yes, because that was the right thing to do. Right? Because there are moments in your life that you don't ask yourself, what is the financially correct thing to do? You don't even ask yourself, what is the legally right thing to do? He did murder someone, which was wrong. But you ask yourself, what is the morally right thing to do? What is the thing that is required of me at this moment? That is what I'm asking people when I travel around the country and around North America, is asking people, ask yourself, like, what is the right thing for you to do right now, given the situation that you have been thrust into? And we've all been thrust into this situation. No one asked for this, but here we are.
Exactly.
That's a lot. It's very empowering, I think, for people because, and you model that, you know, having, as you said, not been doing any of this and then overnight becoming someone that is speaking up for truth at all consequences, which ultimately, right, that ended up getting you kicked off your campus, which I'm sure hasn't been easy. If you want to share a little bit about that.
It has been, and I've been really open about it, because when I tell people, like, it's not all beauty and nice. Yeah, it's been very, very difficult. It's been isolating. The moments that I've shed tears, and I've shed many tears in the past 15 months, have been one, negative, sad news about the hostages. And unfortunately, today we got news of another hostage that has been killed, murdered by Hamas. And two, interpersonal relationships, colleagues who have turned their backs at me, people that I thought would be there with me and are not. I can tell you I was, kicked out of campus for speaking out on the anniversary of October 7th. Right before I logged in, I received an email from my lawyers. So this is a scoop. Your first to get a scoop. So in order for me to go back on campus and teach, because I'm supposed to start teaching in 2.5 weeks, I need to go through some quote unquote sensitivity training. It's part of the woke DEI Stasi Soviet training. And think what you want about that. I had one thing that I refused to do, which is sign an NDA and non-disclosure agreement, because if I'm going to go through some training that the university will force me, I want to be able to tell the world what is this training for this alleged crime that I didn't do. but the university is insisting, and the email that I received now is, if I do not sign the NDA, I will not be able to teach this semester. I still don't know. I'm not going to sign it, but it kind of shows you where we stand. I may lose my job, but it's the right thing to do.
Why? What exactly do they want you to sign? And why are you the one that has to take sensitivity training? That just seems to me strange, to say the least.
Yes, of course. It's we're living in a bizarre world, right? The Joseph Mossad, the professor who said that he experienced awe and jubilation over the October 7th massacre, and on the anniversary, was in Turkey as a keynote speaker, celebrating this conference that was celebrating this massacre. He does not need to take sensitivity training. In fact, he will be teaching a course about Zionism, what
I know.
supremacy at Columbia, where I was on campus on the anniversary, and I confronted several university administrators for their refusal to put an end to a pro-Hamas march that blatantly broke every rule possible. Put those videos online. 2 million people saw those videos, and that caused the university to retaliate against me. Now, if you watch those videos, and I tell people, because I don't want, I tattooed the word emet, truth, because I want people to realize I'm not trying to sell them anything. If you watch that videos, they're uncomfortable videos. They're not videos that make me proud of myself. And as I always say, my late grandmother, Savta Lydia, would not be proud of the way I behave in those videos, right? I'm in people's face. I am very assertive in the videos. I am making them uncomfortable. One thing that I'm not doing, or two things that I'm not doing, is harassing them or intimidating them. I actually tell them in the video, just to note, I'm keeping my distance from you so you don't feel harassed or intimidated. I was suspended on campus out of allegedly harassing and intimidating university officials. I tell everyone, go watch the videos. You be the judge. The university can't be the investigator, judge, and executioner. The people should be.
Absolutely.
It's upsetting on so many levels. It really is. And I think it's hard for so many people to see what you've been punished for and what other professors are being given like full consent to just, and like, I think it goes back to what you're talking, you describe feeling even as a child of this irrational aspect of anti-Semitism that I think we can never escape, and we have all experienced, like, the statistics say there's been a 700% rise in anti-Semitism since October 2023, and on campus in particular. And,
well, to me, I mean, yes, the rise is very, very concerning. But we have to remember one thing. Anti-Semitism, at least in New York City, has been the number one hate crime for 8 years straight.
Absolutely.
Wow, I did not know that, actually.
Yeah, so 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and last week published 2024. In fact, in 2024, the number of anti-Semitic incidents in New York City was higher than any other hate crimes combined, meaning against Christians, Muslims, Blacks, LGBTQ community, trans, anything. So and I say we, including myself, have been asleep on the wheel. I have only myself to blame. I always blame myself first rather than other people. But we have to understand, the mayor of New York City is receiving all these prizes from legacy Jewish organizations for basically doing nothing. And
I saw people talking about that.
And we're in this very, very weird situation. And it really does emphasize to me the need for our own state. right? Ironically, the anti-Semites are proving us right. The only place in the world where there is no anti-Semitism is the place where Jewish people are the majority, which is the state of Israel. Now we face other sorts of hate.
Absolutely.
The radical Islamist Hamas and Fatah and Hezbollah's um, terrorism, but we don't experience anti-Semitism in Israel. So thank you, anti-Semites, for making a better point than we could ever make for why we need the state of Israel.
It's interesting that you say that, because after October 7th, over 100,000 people came to volunteer for the IDF, or moved here, or moved back home, or something. And I remember there were a number of people who were at the Nova Festival and went back. They were living abroad, like Israelis or just, people visiting, and they were living abroad. And they went back and they said that they felt safer in Israel, in Tel Aviv, where there were sirens like going off every day, than they did walking, in New York or wherever they had returned to.
Yeah, one of great new friend that I made over the past year, Noy Leib, has been spending half his time in reserve duty in either the north border or in Gaza, and then half his time traveling around the U.S. and telling his stories. And he told me, he was here at our place over for Shabbat dinner a couple of months ago, and he told me that the scariest he's been in this past 15 months were when he went to DC and was in the middle of an anti-Jewish, anti-Israel, anti-American protest. This is a guy who has spent weeks, if not months, in Gaza, sheltering to make sure that he does not get shot by Hamas, bullets, RPGs, mortars. And yet he feels safer there than he does in the middle of a protest in Washington, D.C. That is I don't know what the word for Teudat Aniyut. It's like a demerit on U.S. society of the highest degree.
I have to ask you, because everything you're saying is, a lot of it, we've been hearing it and it's unbelievable. But how, you were saying, like, over the past 8 years, anti-Semitism was rising. It was on the rise, but yet it didn't reach even where we are today. So how do you think we got here? You mentioned like being asleep at the wheel. Do you think there are things that, the Jewish community should do differently? And also you mentioned, like elected officials. What do you think can be done differently on the part of elected officials and then on the part of the Jewish community?
So first of all, I would say with the elected officials and the authorities, they haven't been taking it seriously, right? They haven't been taking it seriously because it's been convenient for them. Most of the anti-Semitic incidents in New York City, for example, do not happen to people that look like me. They happen to observant Orthodox Jews in Brooklyn. And elected officials don't care. They just don't care. They find it easier to blame the Orthodox community because they look different, because they behave different, because they have different traditions. That is part of why I started wearing this Magen David, the Star of David, to make clear to the world, like, no, we might believe in different things, we might have different ways of living our lives, but we are all Jews. And if you're coming for them, you're coming for me. And if you're coming for me, you're coming for them, and we are one. So it's just not been taken seriously by any means. And that is and not just by the authorities, but also by the media, right? You'd assume that if when I say the past 8 years, the top hate crime in New York City was against Jews, it wouldn't raise eyebrows for people because everyone would know about it, because that the media would tell about it. But it's not as sexy. When Jews are sexy when they are dead. They are not sexy when they are beat up. And that is, that's part of the identity politics that happened in the US, that they've tried to erase our identity. And I am, if I close my hoodie so you don't see my Star of David, I am white for people. I am not white. I tell people I became white when I was 27 and moved to the US. That's when I got the label of white.
Right.
But I'm not white. I am Jewish. But that does not fit in their whole narrative. Now, that is one thing. The other thing is that both the world, but also the Jewish community, was looking backwards. And they were looking to, where did anti-Semitism come from in the past? And it came mostly from the extreme right. Now, the Jewish communities were led by, partially because of numbers in the US, partially because of some sort of issues and I should call it out racism, by the Ashkenazi Jews. And the Ashkenazi Jews were mostly victimized by the extreme right anti-Semitism. Had we been listening to Sephardic Mizrahi Jews, Iranian Jews, then we would be looking to the extreme left, which is where the Jews from Iraq, Jews from Syria, Jews from Lebanon, Jews from Iran, that's the anti-Semitism that they experience. They experience the anti-Semitism that's coming from the extreme radical factions in the Muslim world. So we have this problem of where we were focusing. At the same time, I don't think we should be pointing fingers and saying who's wrong, who's to blame, why did they not do this? We should be looking to ourselves and saying, okay, given that this is the situation right now, how can we fight the situation better in 2024?
Absolutely,
Yeah, and-
absolutely. I just want to take a moment to remind everyone, if you just joined us, you are watching On the Mic on anti-Semitism, and we're here today with Shai Davidai. Did I say that right this time?
Yeah.
And we're discussing basically his journey and everything that happened at Columbia University, and then the rising anti-Semitism in general that we're all very aware of. And so if you have any questions or comments for Shai, please do put them in the chat and we will be answering them in a few moments. But Shai, I want to get back to what you're saying just for a moment. You were saying basically what I'm hearing is that a lot of things kind of fell through the cracks because of the lack of unity in a way, because unity has always been a Jewish superpower. But when, like the Ashkenazim weren't connected with what was happening to, the Mizrahi Jews or the Sephardim, and we're going through very similar things, obviously, all Jews, but they weren't connected. They didn't know about it. And so then you have this like divide where things were happening kind of in a silo of different sets of Jews. And we weren't able or weren't equipped to properly, stand strong.
I think part of that, yes, I think definitely part of the problem that we have is that we are, yes, we congregate in synagogues. In New York City, we congregate on Israel Day, 20, 30,000 strong, but we don't have that infrastructure of just coming together to demand what we deserve. It's I flippantly say this when I talk that we outsource our salvation to Messiah, to Mashiach, right?
It's so funny. My husband says that all the time.
we've been kind of conditioned to say, look, it's not going to be okay. Let's just wait for Mashiach. Now, I don't have the time to wait for Messiah. But in the United States, especially, we've replaced that with the big organizations. We've kind of said, well, it's tough, but we have this organization, we have that organization. I don't want to name organizations because I think they're doing great work, or they're doing what they are supposed to do. Those organizations, if it's the ADL, if it's the Federation, they are doing what they were supposed to do, which is educate, fundraise, lobby, appear in the media. They were not built to mobilize people. That's not their reason of existence, right? It's not in their mission. And by the way, big organization can never mobilize people. Mobilization always comes from grassroots. But unfortunately, American Jews, Canadian Jews as well, Mexican Jews, I'm talking about communities that I've met, um, were also not trained to speak up and stand up for themselves. They've been raised to keep your head down. You don't want any issues. You don't want any problems. Right now, we need to mobilize. We need to be standing up. We need to be in the streets. We need to be demanding things on main campus. We need to do things that require all of us to show up. And we need to do that unitedly. One of the beautiful things that happened when I host a rally, in the numerous rallies that I've hosted in the past year, is you get Jews of all kinds. You get observant Jews, you get secular Jews, you get white Jews or white passing Jews and black Jews. You get all different kinds of Jews, and we're all there for one reason and one reason only: standing up together to demand what we deserve.
Yeah, I was going to ask, just kind of, if we could take it to a positive note, what your advice would be for our listeners, just, and people who feel like, oh, I don't have a platform, or I don't have people, like, what can we all do individually and collectively to make a difference and to feel hope during these really dark times?
Yeah. So first of all, the I don't have a platform excuse doesn't fly with me, because I didn't have a platform either. You don't know, in this world we live in, nobody gives you a mic. You grab the mic, meaning you go and you start speaking up. And you know what? Even if 100 people listen to you on social media, you never know what those 100 people will do. Maybe what you will do will create some sort of effect where other people, and that will reach someone. So everybody has a voice. But I always say, I can't tell people what to do, because I don't know what people are comfortable with and what are their skills. But you have skills. Everybody has skills.
Absolutely.
So use whatever skills you have. If it's, I've talked with graphic designers. So, create infographics, and start
Absolutely.
putting them online or putting them on city corners. We have in New York City the Sticker Collective, just a group of individuals with printers that print stickers and put it all around the city, reminding people of the hostages, reminding people about anti-Semitism, and also bringing out positive information about the Jewish life. If you are good with words, write an op-ed. It doesn't have to be published in the New York Times. In fact, I don't know if I can swear here, screw the New York Times. Go publish
it. Like the New York Times.
go publish it in your local news. Because if someone in your town may not even know that anti-Semitism on the rise, and if they see someone in New York City saying it, they wouldn't care. But if they see someone in their town, someone who they know and they've seen at the grocery store, and you wrote an op-ed in whatever the Pittsburgh Times, then they will take it seriously. If it's some people are really, really good at working behind the scene and connecting people. Right? So go and connect people, host events. You never know what will happen if you just start going. If you have, dispensable income, go and spend, help with that money. Some people don't have dispensable income, but are good at, fundraising. I need money for my podcast. Other people need money for their podcast. Social content creators need money. Like, there's so many things to do. Art, education. My neighbor across the street, she is a third generation of Holocaust survivors. She goes and talks in public schools in New York City. Why? Because that's what we need to do. Every one of us counts. Just because I have X amount of followers and you have half or a tenth of that doesn't make me more important or more impactful. It just makes me louder. That's it.
I absolutely love that, because that is pretty much the philosophy of Aish. Rabbi Noach Weinberg, the founder of Aish, he believed that every single Jew have has a part to play and a role to play and a responsibility for our people and also for wider humanity by doing their part, whatever the part is. And I love how you share all of these real time, options that people can do. If you're a graphic designer, then do that. What if you're, an artist, then do that. Whatever is your talent, then do that. But don't remain silent. Is basically
Yeah, and I want to remind people, because people have seen me, have heard me, have become sick of me. The only reason you saw that viral video, the only reason it went viral was not me. It was you, right? I spoke for 10 minutes in front of 30 people. That's it. You shared it. You posted it online. You sent it around in your WhatsApp groups. You made it go viral because you thought it was important, not because of who I am. And nobody should care about who Shai is, right? But the message resonated. So even if all you do is amplify other people's voices, there's a reason why when you go to a rock concert, there is huge amplification. You need the amplification. Without amplification, I am just a a quiet voice in this huge world. So we all have something to give.
That's beautiful.
100%. Yeah.
I'm gonna just take, in the interest of time, a few questions from our audience here, if you don't mind.
Of course.
So we have someone named Lauren asking, how is it possible that there are videos of professors that brag about being involved in the Second Intifada? And that's fine, but you have to take sensitivity training or whatever you have to do. She feels like we're living in some sort of alternate reality.
Yeah, Lauren, you're absolutely right. And in the darkest times of the past year, I've felt hopeless because of this. And you start thinking about, is it just me? Is no one else seeing this? Could everyone be crazy, or maybe I'm the crazy one? Now that's normal. There are many reasons for why we've gotten to this point, especially in academia. I won't, for sake of time, I won't go to all of it, but I will just say this: the progressive factions within the humanities and some of the social sciences, namely anthropology, political science, and some sociology, have created an intellectual framework that allows them not just to justify hatred toward Jews and Israelis, but to actually see it as virtuous. And when you see hatred as virtuous, you get this blatant, open support for things that you would never imagine were it to happen to any other minority in the world, right? In the same way that the Nazis created an entire ideological framework where killing Jews were the virtuous thing, they've created this ideological distortion where killing Israelis and Jews who refuse to denounce their identity, meaning Zionists, is virtuous.
Do you think there will come a point where the pendulum will swing the other way and people will realize the errors of their ways, or not for a while?
I don't think these people will see the error of their ways. I've said this from day one. People who've closed their hearts to what we all saw on October 7th, nothing we can do will ever open their hearts. What I do hope is that the institutions as a whole will come to see this as a completely morally unjustifiable stance. And if we do that, then I think we'll be able to say we have succeeded to a certain degree. My concern is that as things are happening especially in the US and in the Western world, the pendulum swings so far. So we're going to go from extreme left to, rather than stopping in the moderate center where most sane people are, to the extreme right. And we're going to do away with things that are good in the name of correction. And then we're going to have to keep swinging back and forth.
So it's going to take, what you're saying, some time and some doing before we get it right.
I
If
think
right.
it's not we're going to get it right. It's they're going to get it right. We're getting it right. We just have to get them to see it.
Yeah.
Okay,
One of the things, and one of the things I've been meaning to make a video about this, but my life is hectic. One of the things that amazes me is the number of countries that have apologized for the Holocaust, including countries that was not involved in the Holocaust, but have apologized for not taking in Jews, like Canada, like the United States, like the UK, right? There will come a time where universities and countries will apologize for 2024. I don't want
Amen. I will say amen.
I don't want an apology. I want you to get it right on
Now.
live, real time, rather than, oh, sorry, we should have listened. That's not enough for me.
This is actually something that former MK Anat Wolf was talking about. She was saying that Jews have a timing problem. You know, we sound the alarm, no one listens, then we get attacked, no one listens, no one cares, and then by the time anyone cares, it just matters like how many. She was saying like the thing for Jews is like how many Jews have to die or suffer before people realize it's a timing issue. And part of what we need to do is not only, you know, with the allyship and everything, but think about our people and try to like do the best we can to minimize, you know, how many Jews will be attacked or killed by the time everyone else catches up with us. Because we have like a bit of a timing problem where we're always ahead of the curve.
Yeah. And I mean, unfortunately, we kind of know when this will happen. This will happen when the casualties will stop being just Jews, right? The United States were,
Right.
the United States joining World War II was the mark that switched everything. The United States did not join World War II because Jews were being slaughtered in Auschwitz. They joined World War II because the Japanese attacked in Pearl Harbor. They cared about themselves, not about the Jews. So, that's the moment when things will change. And look, horrific as it is the attack in New Orleans last week, for example. We've been telling this. I personally have been talking about this for 15 months. I said it's coming. It's coming.
Mobilize the Intifada.
Now it's come here.
Right.
It's one of those things that I will never be able to understand or internalize how little people care about Jews.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But hey, we care about ourselves, so screw them.
Absolutely. In the interest of time, again, we're just going to take one or two more questions. Someone's asking you, can you maybe teach at a Jewish university, maybe a Yeshiva university?
I would just say I would love to. I would love to. For me, I don't care about where I teach. The name Columbia University does nothing to me. The name Princeton or Cornell, like I've never been drawn to the brand. I just want to teach. I just want to be in a classroom with people, and in that magical moment where not only do I convey some knowledge on others, but I also learn from the students. I've had the greatest educational situations have not been in universities. When I was in graduate school, I taught in maximum security prison in upstate New York. That to me was incredible, in Auburn, New York.
What did you teach? What were you teaching?
I taught an introduction to social psychology. These were not Ivy League preppy upper middle class students. These were just people that wanted to learn. And when the first class, I told them, you are not incarcerated men. I am not, a free man here. I'm the professor. You're the students. That's it. So I will teach whomever is willing to sit in a class with me.
Amazing. Let's take one more question. And then we have a rapid fire round that we want to ask you. We'll see how that goes. But let's see. Do we have one more question?
Jody.
Yeah, Jody was asking, What do you recommend telling a student going to college how to prepare for the misinformation, the blood libels that are bound to be thrown at them?
Yeah, Jody, that's a great idea. That's a great question. A question that I keep being asked mostly by parents and grandparents. Unfortunately, not so much by the students themselves. I tell everyone you have to prepare yourself in two important ways. One, you have to expose yourself to the misinformation before you get there. You need to know how the other side thinks and come ready to face that, right? If the first time that you hear something like Israel is an apartheid state is in a classroom surrounded by 20 keffiyeh clad students, you are not going to speak up because you're going to be shocked. So, something that I do is I go on their, the other side, whatever that means, social media accounts. I see how they think and the lies that they come up with. And then I have conversations with my wife, with my friends, what do we think about this? Could they be right? And if they are right, and then we realize, no, they're absolutely wrong, but here's why. So that's the first thing. And, if you want to face the disease, then you have to vaccinate yourself. The second thing is you have to train yourself to speak up. It's not easy to speak up in the first time and say, okay, here's why Israel is not an apartheid state. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And by the way, I can go on for hours about this. This is why it's not a genocide. This is why it's not ethnic cleansing. This is why it's a blood libel to say that Israel harvests organs. Where did it even start from? I can do all of that. But the reason I can do that is because I trained. And I trained by speaking with people that I trust and people that are on my side. And we would ask each other, that's not really convincing. What is convincing? If you train yourself, then when you're on campus, then it's much easier to confront those things. One thing that I would say, there's a great organization called Stand With Us. Stand With Us has a lot of information in easily digestible pamphlets where you can just read. Unpacked is another one. It's on YouTube. I know Aish puts out some information. There's a lot of information out there. You just have
I would plug our community, United Against Antisemitism. I'm really working to have very curated resources for students who don't have a lot of time and also have the community. It's like anytime you're going through something, you just can put it out there and you have a whole wealth of people who might have gone through similar situations. And I really want to get more experts and mentors like you on board, and just to be able to give people in these difficult situations the access at their fingertips to have support and get their questions answered.
Yeah.
Okay, clearly one session is not enough because there's so much more I wanted to ask you. We'd love to have you back, actually. I really wanted to dive into how do you know so much, but yet, I've heard that you identified as an atheist. We won't dive into that this time. Maybe you'll agree to come back
I'd love to.
another time. I do want
to get come back to Israel. We'll just chill in person. It'll be really cool.
I'll be there over the summer. So yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. You can join us. We actually have a studio, an actual physical studio. We're just, it's late for us here, so we're doing this from home. But in general, yeah, we can do a session at the studio and dive into that if you're okay with it.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna do our rapid fire with you.
All right. I'm ready.
Ready. Okay. This is so exciting. Favorite Jewish holiday growing up and now?
Rosh Hashanah and Rosh Hashanah. I just love the idea of renewal.
Bagels or burekas?
Burekas. 100%. I love bagels, but hey, I'm Israeli.
I know. Team Shabbat Shalom or Good Shabbos?
No, so Shabbat Shalom, because Good Shabbos is only.
Yay, me too.
Section of our people.
I get confused depending on who I'm talking to. If you could have Shabbat dinner with any biblical figure, who would it be?
Biblical figure. For some reason, the name that comes to mind is Sarah.
Wow, beautiful.
I want to ask her, how could you stand living with that guy? stand living with that guy? Like, why didn't you just like put your foot down for a second? Because you could. You're such a strong woman.
Gefilte fish, yay or nay?
Nay, 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 nay.
Okay, challah. Do you go for classic, raisin, or chocolate chip?
No, classic. Anything that goes with hummus, so classic.
Yes, you're Israeli through and through. Favorite Israeli city?
Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv.
Nice.
I'm sorry. I know I should say Jerusalem, but Tel Aviv.
No, say what you on your heart. Hava Nagila, dance floor favorite or overplayed anthem? Don't think too hard.
God, that is such an interesting question. I don't like dancing the Hava Nagila, but I love watching other people dance. So I guess favorites.
Okay, nice. Who's your favorite Jewish celebrity?
I don't like celebrities. I should say my mother-in-law. No, that's the right answer. My mother-in-law is a Jewish celebrity, Gilat Ankori. So she's a famous Israeli actor.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Cool. And what is the most Jewish thing you've done this week?
What is the most this week? It's Wednesday. I mean,
You did something Jewish. Tell us. What was it?
Probably made my son feel guilty about something.
I thought that was a Jewish mom thing, not a Jewish dad thing.
It's a Jewish dad thing now.
I'm Jewish through and
That's
through.
okay.
I don't
We don't need
know.
to analyze it. But it's an honor to have you here. And everyone listening, you can find Shai on Here I Am with Shai Davidai. And I would just love if you can give all of our listeners today something to be proudly Jewish for. One reason to be proudly Jewish, something you're proud of.
Yes, we gave the world the weekend. We invented the weekend, not the musician, the actual weekend. There was no, people used to be born, work, and then die, and no stop. And all of a sudden, we came and said, one day a week, everybody rests. Kings, paupers, even animals. And that is an incredible invention, and we came up with it.
I love it.
Love it.
Perfect.
Thank you, Shai, so much. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, and good luck on your podcast.
Really
I'm so honored to be the first person on this podcast. Do you know who's the next one?
We're going to be announcing it. We're trying to confirm the times. We're going to be announcing it in the next week.
All right, so let me know. And good luck.
And we'd love to have you back in the summer.
I will come.
Okay, perfect.
Enjoy the rest of your evening. Have a good night.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.
That was wonderful. He's so cool. Amazing.
He's the nicest, I know. He's great.
He's so real. Like exactly what you see is exactly, what you get. Very Israeli. And I absolutely loved all his rapid fire answers because they're all my picks. As a fellow Israeli, I was like, don't let me down. The only thing
he was, and it's like really cute how you could talk. He's so easy to talk to. He's just, and he brought his full energy, like really.
And so knowledgeable too. It was amazing. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining us for the very first episode of On the Mic. And like we said, stay tuned to the space United Against Antisemitism on Age Plus, because we're going to be announcing the very next guest that we have coming up later this month. So keep your eyes
lined up, guys. And we'll take your suggestions for guests because, we want to bring on the people you want to hear from. And we will hunt down the most sought after guests if that's what we need to do.
Yes, absolutely. We absolutely want to hear from you, and we want to know what you think about the series and who, like BD said, you want us to bring on. So thank you all again for joining BD and I. BD, this was a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to the next episode, and we will see you guys next time.
Make staying up at 3 a.m. worth it,
Yes, absolutely. I didn't even feel it.
No, totally. It was great.
Bye, everyone. Take care.